What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today I wanted to talk about content in Black Ops Cold War, and whether or not I feel we're going to be getting enough content at launch, because this is one of my concerns that I'm having with the game right now, is that we may not see enough maps, or guns, or score streaks, or whatever at launch. So today I'm going to go over everything we know for sure will be coming at launch, as well as a bunch of other things that have been leaked, or teased, or you might see a little bit of something in the background of a trailer clip, for instance. I want to put all of this together and compare it against previous Call of Duty games to see how much content we can expect in relation to older COD games. And let's start it off with guns. When it comes to the guns that we've already seen in the beta for Cold War, we had 4 assault rifles, 4 SMGs, 2 tactical rifles, 2 LMGs, 2 sniper rifles, 2 shotguns, 3 pistols, and 2 launchers. So when it comes to actual guns, that's 19 guns that we have. And if we're just looking at primary weapons, that's 14 primary weapons. Which definitely wouldn't be very much if the game actually launched with that. But of course, I don't expect the game to launch with just the guns we've seen in the beta. I'm sure they were keeping a few up their sleeves. And there's a few that we already kind of know about. One of them is the M14. This was actually shown off in the Zombies reveal, and since it's usable in Zombies, it's most likely also going to be usable in multiplayer. And it also showed up in an image in the message of the day during the beta, and it was actually in an operator's hands in a multiplayer environment. So therefore, the M14 is effectively confirmed at this point. It will almost definitely be coming to the game. Then we've got 2 guns that were actually leaked from the beta. These were found in the in-game code, and the data miners were actually able to do something to make them playable in the beta. And these 2 weapons are the Barrett M82 sniper rifle, so semi-auto 50 caliber sniper rifle, and also what appears to be the Striker shotgun. So that's 2 more weapons that are definitely in the game. They're in a completely finished state as far as I could tell based on the leaks from those data miners. And therefore, we will probably see those at launch unless they just happen to be holding on to those for post-launch content. But I'm hoping we'll see those ones at launch. And after that, the only other gun that's kind of a maybe at this point that we've seen is the PPSH. Now, with this one, the only time we've seen it so far, I believe, is in the first little Zombies teaser that we got. And with this, it wasn't actually gameplay, and it looked like it was more of a flashback looking back to possibly the origins of zombies in this particular storyline. And therefore, I'm not really convinced that it's going to be a multiplayer weapon, but who knows? Maybe it will be, maybe it won't be. We've technically seen it as an asset in the game, and therefore, it's a possibility we'll see it at launch. And assuming it is there alongside the other ones I mentioned, that would bring our total gun count up to 23, or total primary weapon count up to 17. And this does fall a bit short from what we would normally expect in a Call of Duty at launch, and it would be the least amount of guns that we've ever seen at launch. But I do anticipate they kept a few more guns up their sleeve that we didn't see in the beta, and that haven't been leaked or accidentally sort of teased somewhere yet. At least that's my hope. I'm hoping we're going to see like at least 1 or 2 other SMGs, 1 or 2 other assault rifles, and then perhaps maybe a couple other guns from other categories. That's my hope at least. I am a little bit concerned about this because I do remember back to Black Ops 4, if I'm remembering correctly, we actually had most of the guns in the beta that we ended up seeing at launch. I think they only kept like maybe 3 or 4 primary weapons hidden during the beta that we didn't see until launch. And then every other gun we had access to in the beta. Now, I might be remembering that wrong, but that's just one of my concerns because that is Treyarch's most recent Call of Duty game, and I do remember feeling a bit disappointed in the weapon count at launch with that game. But moving on, let's talk about score streaks. In the beta, we actually had a pretty decent selection of score streaks for a beta. We had access to 10 different streaks. And then on top of this, 2 other streaks were basically confirmed throughout the beta from loading screen tips as well as descriptions on perks. And these 2 streaks are the cruise missile. There were some tips relating to the cruise missile in those loading screens, so we can expect a cruise missile to be coming at launch. And then also the combat bow. This was in the flak jacket description. It looks like the combat bow will also be coming as a score streak. Now, on top of this, I believe it was just yesterday, all of the achievements, or a bunch of the achievements at least, have been leaked for Cold War. And in one of those achievements, apparently in one of the campaign missions, we're going to have access to an AC-130 because one of the achievements is get a certain number of kills with an AC-130 in a particular campaign mission. if the AC-130 is showing up in the campaign, it almost definitely will end up being a score streak in the multiplayer as well, and therefore I would say that one is also extremely likely. On top of that, there's been several other ones that have been data mined in the past and have been leaked. These ones I'm a lot less certain about, but I'm still going to mention them here. And with this, we have some form of a sniper's nest. It might not be called a sniper's nest, but it's something like that. Also a flamethrower, which does seem fairly likely since we have a war machine as well as a combat bow. It looks like we're seeing a lot of the previous specialist type weapons coming as score streaks. So it looks like we will be seeing a flamethrower as well as a death machine as score streaks. Also an advanced spy plane, body armor potentially, and a K9 unit of some sort. And for all of those ones, like I said, I'm not 100% certain on those. Even though they were found in the code, things are always changing behind the scenes, so a lot of those could have been scrapped, or maybe it was just leftover code from the past or something. So I'm not as certain, but assuming those ones are all in the game, that would give us a total score streak count of 19, which is very solid for Call of Duty. That's actually the same as Modern Warfare. And just looking back to Black Ops 4, we only had 15 streaks total, so 19 would be great, and I'd be quite happy with that much content. But finally, let's talk about maps, and honestly, this is my biggest concern when it comes to the potential for a lack of content at launch. We really don't know at this point. I hope I'm going to be wrong about my concerns when it comes to this, but especially with the addition of combined arms as well as that Fireteam Dirty Bomb, I'm really worried this is going to mean not as many 6v6 maps as we would like or as we're used to in Call of Duty. And this was a big problem with COD World War II, for instance. In that game, we only had 9 multiplayer maps at launch. And typically before that, we would expect to see somewhere between like 13 and 16 multiplayer maps. So 9 was really cutting it short, but they had their excuse that they had the war mode, and therefore with the war mode they had, I think it was 3 war maps at launch, and they were very big maps, and therefore they were included in the map count, which brought it up to 12, which was still not very many maps at launch, even with those war maps included, which I personally don't include those. And with Combined Arms and Fireteam being in Cold War, combined with all of the development issues that they've had with Cold War, like the virus and then the rumored studio clash that went on a long time ago where Treyarch had to step in, this definitely has me concerned about our potential map count at launch. So let's go over the maps that we know about so far that we played in the beta. We have Miami, Satellite, Moscow, and Cartel for 6v6 maps. And then for Combined Arms, they reused Cartel for that. And then we have Armada as well as Crossroads. Now for me, the main focus here is 6v6 maps. That is the core Call of Duty experience. That's what I'm most likely going to be playing more than anything. And yeah, we had access to 4 6v6 maps in the beta, which is fairly standard for a beta, and it really doesn't give us much of an indication of what we'll see at launch. But I also wanted to point out that on top of this, there's another multiplayer map that was leaked a long time ago. It was actually the first ever gameplay leak for Cold War, which was many, many months ago. And that was that little bit of footage where it looked like a phone was recording a phone that was recording a monitor. It was really terrible footage, but you could see a little bit of the map. It looked like it took place in a tank factory. And it turns out, with the little trailer that we got for the Onslaught mode, which is that mode that's exclusive to PlayStation for a full year, there is this short segment right here. And pay attention to the background, not the actual zombie boss. Pay attention to the background here. That looks a lot like that tank factory that we saw in that leaked gameplay, although a much more finished version of that tank factory. And therefore, I do sort of expect that this tank factory map will be there at launch, so that would bring our count up to 5. Also, Nuketown. I mean, Nuketown, it's just a staple of the Black Ops series. It's been in literally every Black Ops game, and I honestly think it is very safe to assume that Nuketown will be in Cold War. Most likely at launch. Maybe it'll be the type of thing where it comes like a month after launch. I think they did that with Black Ops 4, actually. But in either case, I would expect to see that very early on in the game's life cycle. And that brings us up to 6 multiplayer maps. So assuming they've got a few more up their sleeve, I'm hoping at least like 3 or 4 more up their sleeve. Plus, there have been rumors that the Combined Arms maps will have 6v6 versions for every one of the Combined Arms maps. So Armada, for instance, there have been some rumors that that middle boat, the big boat in the center of Armada, that will be a 6v6 multiplayer map. And then they'll just have all the zip lines closed off and you won't be able to swim to the other ships. And then with Crossroads, they could potentially do a smaller version of that map where it's just one section of it, and that could be a 6v6 map. And I think that could be a great way to sort of bridge that gap without spreading themselves too thin, as long as this was thought through from the beginning and the maps were built from the ground up to support that. Like on Armada, for instance, I actually said throughout the beta, like, yeah, this middle boat would work as a 6v6 map on its own. So it almost seems like they designed it with that in mind, and if that's the case going forward with other Combined Arms maps, I think that would actually resolve my current fears when it comes to a potential lack of content when it comes to these maps. Again, as long as it was actually designed with that in mind, and it's not like they're just looking at a Combined Arms map after the fact and then thinking, yeah, we'll turn that area into a 6v6 map, even though it wasn't really designed for that. So I would definitely still prefer quality over quantity when it comes to maps. But honestly, the quality of the maps in the beta, I don't think they were incredible maps, especially by Treyarch standards. I don't think they were amazing maps by any means. Like, I enjoyed Moscow, I enjoyed Satellite, Miami not so much, and Cartel, if they fix the visibility issues and trim the bushes down, I think I would like Cartel as well. But none of them really stood out to me as a map that people are going to be looking back to years from now and thinking, wow, that map was amazing. They were all just sort of pretty decent in my opinion, with the exception being Miami. And therefore, I'm really interested to see what other types of maps we end up seeing at launch with Cold War. But at the end of the day, when it comes to quantity, I really hope we see bare minimum 10 6v6 maps, but I'm hoping for at least like 13 or 14 of them. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up for everything I wanted to talk about today. I'm also a bit curious to see how many more operators, if any, we will see at launch and how they're going to handle them, if they're going to separate them into different factions, which I hope they're going to do. But with this, I've got no extra insight to add to this. There's been no leaks or teasers or anything for other operators, so we just really don't know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm definitely a bit concerned about the amount of content we'll be seeing at launch. But for most of this, I guess we're just gonna have to wait and see what we get. And with that, I'd like to hear from you guys. What do you guys think about the amount of content that we'll be seeing at launch for Cold War? Do you think my concerns aren't really warranted and everything will be fine and they've got a bunch of guns up their sleeves and a bunch of maps up their sleeves that they're going to be adding to the game at launch? Or are you also a bit concerned that we won't really have a ton of launch content? Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.